Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morgan, we're out the Motor City Madmouth. And what's so nice about this broadcast is we get to have a lot of people that never knew each other get to meet one another. And alongside of me tonight is my regular Thursday night co-host, Stuart Hack. How you doing tonight, Stuart?
I'm doing great, Scott. How are you?
Doing fine, thanks. And one of my favorites on the broadcast is K.R. Lombardia, a person who I worked with back in the mid-1980s when I worked with the Tampa Tribune, and we had a lot of fun working together. So, KR, thanks for being back on the broadcast. We really appreciate it.
Nice to be here, Scott. Nice to be here.
So why don't you go ahead and let everybody know what you did out in the Tampa area. I know you were a coach at 3 prominent locations. Talk about your education and so forth. Go ahead, KR.
Well, I coached in college at all 3 schools here in Tampa. University of Tampa for 3 years, South Florida for 3 years, and I was assistant at Hillsborough Community College, where I was a coach in waiting. That never worked out, and then I became head coach at Chamberlain before I baseball coach at Chamberlain before I went into administration here in Tampa, and I finished my career 9 years ago at Alonzo High School as the athletic director, and I was also a high school football coach too.
Very good. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, since you talked about being a high school football coach, I know, even though it's a baseball broadcast, you want to get some college football off your chest. Go right ahead and do it, KR.
I'm a college football nut. In fact, as we're speaking, I'm watching the SEC channel that I watch every day, and I watch the afternoon where they talk about the SEC, and I'm just so anxious for this to start, and I'm watching to see what happens, and it seems like everybody's going, and the SEC is going to 25% attendance. Paul Feinbaum was talking about it today. I'm sure that you people know about Paul Feinbaum and the SEC talking every day about what's happening, and it looks like 25% is going to be the attendance if they get the season off. I still have my doubts, but I'm just so anxious to see college football start. I mean, we should be on the brink of it in 2 weeks, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen until the end of September, which, in retrospect, that's when they started back when I was a kid. But I'm just really, really anxious to see college football start. We need to get away from these doldrums that we're in, where we're watching. I'm tired of watching reruns. I think everybody else is too. But college football, it's just sad that the Big Ten and the Pac-12 have decided so early not to play. And I think that they did it a little bit too early. And it's just going to be interesting to see if the SEC, ACC, Big 12, ACC, the American Athletic Conference, and Sun Belt are also going to play. And I don't know how many FCS schools are going to play.
Well, I don't think any FCS.
203 I know is gone. They've canceled the season, but this is uncharted territory,
right?
I think, and I just it's so sad to see these kids not being able to play. I know that I'm reading where the Big Ten, Justin Fields at Ohio State, and a bunch of parents tried to get the Big Ten to rethink their decision, and they said no, they're not going to rethink it, and that's sad. Kids are going to miss their season. I think you're going to see a lot of kids just go out and not come back for another year. They're going to go in the NFL.
Yeah.
Fields probably.
But what happens to eligibility? Like if there's a senior this year and he wants to stay, would he have the opportunity to come back next year?
They're going to give him another year. They did it in baseball, and we can talk about college baseball too, Scott. I know
Absolutely.
That that I'm a college baseball nut. They've given everybody this year. They've given them another year in eligibility, and so the beauty of college baseball is you can come out and get drafted, and if you don't get to go high enough, you can go back. In football, you declare, you can't come back, and they've got to change that. I think they need to change that and say, if you declare and you don't get drafted high enough, you decide to come back, you can come back. And I think that's wrong. They do that for baseball. After your junior year or within 6 months of your 21st birthday, if you get drafted in baseball, you can get drafted. And if you don't go high enough, get enough money, you can come back and play baseball.
Well, with college,
not in football,
Yeah,
I think that's wrong.
With college basketball, I think they give you an opportunity to see what your draft stock is, and then you can pull back out and go back. So that's not
they should
bad.
They should say, if you don't get drafted high enough, you get to come back. That's the way they should do it. I think what they're going to do, and they're doing it based on, I don't know, they have not decided yet, because you only get 11 and a half scholarships in baseball, and which is, I don't understand, the half, but anyway, they do that. But they're going to extend scholarships next year in baseball. They've said that. So those kids can come back, and the kids that they signed can come back. But I think you're going to find a lot of kids, because you have to, and I don't know the formula in baseball. It's very complicated, where you can keep so many players, but they have to have so much money given to them unless they're complete walk-ons. And so you're going to get a lot of kids that you've promised money to, and you're going to have to tell them, they're sophomores, you're going to have to go to junior college. I know they've done that at Mississippi State. I know Chris Lamonis, the head baseball coach at Mississippi State, has a roster where he's had to send some kids to junior college next year and then pick them up after they go to junior college, because he's now backlogged on his scholarships. So it's a very touchy situation in baseball. And in football, they've talked about, are they going to extend the 85 scholarship rule? Are you going to say, well, you're going to get these kids coming back, you're not going to take your scholarships away? So they'll probably extend it to 95 or whatever. I'm sure that they're still talking about the NCAA office. It's really, really, this is uncharted territory. They've never had to do this before, and it's not easy. I can tell you that. Well,
my gut feeling is that the longer these seasons get going for the conference that you're alluding to, I don't think it gets going if this virus gets worse, number one. That's item number one. I don't think there will be any FCS at all, from what I've heard. Forget FCS. Flush that down, drain. But, again, it'll be interesting. It is uncharted territory, unprecedented times with COVID-19, without a doubt. But I don't know what we can talk about all the scheduling changes. I don't believe in, myself, the spring football concept, and I think you're right, KR. A lot of these guys are going to opt out anyhow and prepare for the draft. You're already seeing a lot of those anyhow. So, while other guys will be able to have a chance to play below the ones that are opting out, you're not going to see legitimacy in college football. And
this really hurts the FCS, I think, because, a Coastal Carolina or somebody like that goes and plays a Division I school. They get a big payout, $1.5 million, and it basically funds their program, because at the FCS level they don't have a lot of money. The Coastal Carolinas and the North Alabamas and people like that don't have that kind of money, and when they go play Florida or Florida State or Miami or Alabama, they get a big payday, and it's going to kill them this year not getting that payday.
Well, even in the
because
but even in the FBS, you have a lot of mid-major schools that are banking on that money as well, KR. So the FCS/FBS,
the Mid-America Conference, they're the first ones not to play,
right?
And it's going to hurt them, because every year they play. One of them plays. They all play. They all have a big time opponent. A lot of Big Ten schools. In fact, every year, I think for years now, a Mid-America Conference team has upset a Big Ten school, and that's a big payday for them to go into Michigan State or Michigan or Ohio State or Wisconsin and get $1.5 million payday. And those days, they're not going to have that this year.
I agree.
So the athletic directors are really in a real bind this year, budget wise.
Well,
it's sad.
Well, University of Massachusetts and Connecticut, two teams that were canceled. And the league goes on with all these independents that are canceled, let alone with the big money, without a doubt. So it'll definitely be unfortunate, and I don't believe in spring football. I think that's a snow job, but that's just my opinion, and only exactly that.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to work out.
But
spring
anyways,
football. I don't know how that may be an option for the Big Ten and the Pac-12, but I don't know. If that's
I'm not holding my breath.
Well,
bear in mind though, Harvard's the first one that started by canceling, and then the dominoes drop in the Ivy League, and then it's in the Big Ten and the Pac-12, but subsequently do what they've done.
Yeah, the Ivy League, and the Ivy League canceled months ago.
Right.
So it's I don't know how. It's sad. It's very sad for these kids. I feel bad for the kids. feel bad for the schools, and I feel bad for the athletic directors having to juggle this budget now, because they're going to have to look at their budget all over again for next year and do some things. That I have friends. A friend of my daughter's is a Florida State season ticket holder, and they send her a letter saying, you can buy these little mini packages of 3 games, and if you donate your money, you can put it to next year. But if everybody puts their money next year and not give a donation to school, Florida State is in trouble money wise.
Right.
And that's going to be tough. And my daughter was asking us, "Is that why?" I said, "Well, they're paying Taggart. I don't know how much they're paying Taggart because he's getting paid at Florida Atlantic, but they're in trouble because they've never really drawn. Even when they were great, they never really drew a lot because they're in Tallahassee. The people in Tampa and Orlando and Miami can't go to Tallahassee overnight and come back like they can in Gainesville or Miami.
That's
so
true.
They've been hurting a little bit money wise. So it's going to hurt some of the bigger schools. I know it's going to hurt Mississippi State. I know it's going to hurt us a lot because we got the SEC channel. I know that, but we're the smallest school in the SEC budget wise, and except other than Vanderbilt, nobody knows because Vanderbilt doesn't make their financial status public because they're a private institution.
Right.
But I know that we are the poorest school in the SEC, and that's going to hurt us.
So, Karen, what do you think about the college draft being limited to, I think, 5 rounds? That's it, versus the conventional 40?
For baseball.
Yeah.
I've never really liked kids coming out of high school at 17 going to play pro ball. I think that if you look at college baseball today, as it was opposed to 30 years ago, it's almost like AA baseball. So I think a kid that goes to college and plays 3 years of college baseball, once he gets out, he's ready for AA.
Right.
And I think that college baseball college baseball should have 20 scholarships, 25 scholarships. And they only give them 11.5. And the problem there, I don't think there's anybody, and I know this for a fact because Ron Polk told me this many, many years ago, that nobody in the NCAA office knows anything about baseball. Nothing.
Really? They
are football, basketball. They know nothing about baseball. Ron Polk has an 18-page letter, I have it somewhere, to the NCAA talking about college baseball. And you know that it's the number 2 sport in the NCAA that brings money into the NCAA. The first is basketball, and the second is baseball. Football doesn't bring a dime into the NCAA because the bowl games are tied into the bowls.
Right.
And the NCAA makes no money out of that. But they do in basketball, but number 2 is baseball. And Polk brought it up, and it's a very interesting letter. I can send it to you, Scott, email sometime.
Sure.
And you read that, you see how much college baseball, and college baseball has gotten so big compared to when I coached it. My last year coaching college baseball was 83. And it was big. We went to Miami, and they would pack Mark-Light Stadium, and Florida State was pretty good, and Florida didn't draw flies. But if you looked at lately, look at the SEC schools, what they draw in college baseball, and you'll look at the 3 schools that really, really draw are Mississippi State, LSU, and Arkansas. And at a point, Ole Miss. Nobody else draws like those schools do. But they draw, I mean, a midweek game in Starkville, Mississippi is going to draw 3,000 fans, 4,000 fans. A weekend series is going to draw 20,000 fans, 22, 20. I was at the Arkansas Super Regional years ago, or Arizona, and we drew 28,000 fans. In 2 games we drew 22,000 fans, I think. And they have the top 30 attendance records in the NCAA. They have like 28 of them, and they pack them in there. And Arkansas does the same thing, and Ole Miss to a point does it, and LSU at Alex Box Stadium brings them in. So college baseball has gotten to be big time. It really is. And if you follow college baseball like I do, and you watch it, it's much more exciting than pro baseball.
Well,
much more. It's not even close.
Let me tell you this: FAU baseball stadium is absolutely horrible. It really is, and they should get a much better on-campus stadium. Yet the FAU baseball program is the most successfin program over there.
Excellent program.
It is. Program. But the one thing that I did have an opportunity to do before the pandemic got in the way is I saw the University of Florida take on FAU, and they were able to use the ballpark of the Palm Beach as the host venue. So if they don't ever get a on-campus stadium, at least FAU knows they can go off the road in West Palm Beach and bring in a good program to entice them. Because I remember seeing a 3-game series between North Carolina and FAU, and I'll tell you what, you're right, FAU outside of USF, that's an excellent baseball program. So very good stuff.
Excellent baseball program.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I know your buddy Tony Fossis was there for a while. Kevin Cooney, the list goes on, and John McCormack.
Kevin Cooney's a great baseball coach.
Oh, he's a good friend of mine. I worked with him there, and one of the nicest people. John McCormack's done a pretty good job, but Kevin Cooney is Kevin Cooney. What can I tell you? All right, with that said, I know that Stuart's a Mets fan, but KR Lombardia is a New York Yankees fan. And go ahead. I love one thing you told me earlier in the week that you feel is that the New York Yankees are made out of glass. So I'd like you to elaborate on that one. That is interesting.
2 more injuries today. Torres got hurt and Paxton's out. So you got Paxton out, Torres out, Judge out, Stanton's made out of glass. I've never seen anybody get hurt so much. And I have a very good friend of mine here in Tampa that we grew up together and we're both big Yankee. There's a lot of Yankee fans in Tampa because before the Rays were here, it's not because they trained here, because they didn't train here until 25 years ago. But there's a lot of Yankee fans here in Tampa. But we think that Stanton and some of these guys, and maybe Judge, they work out so much in the weight room that they get so tight that they pull their muscles. And it's like they're always. I don't remember Stanton being this hurt at Miami, unless he was, and I don't know about it. But I mean, the trainer for the Yankees, or sometimes these guys they get this weightlifting thing, and they don't stretch. And I'm a big believer in weightlifting. I think you have to weightlift. We weightlifted in college. I weightlifted at Chamberlain. My kids weightlifted in the off season at Chamberlain. But I think they get so big. If you look at Stanton. You look at Judge; they're huge. Both of them, Stanton's. I mean, Judge, 6'7", and he looks very muscular, like they're in the weight room a lot. But I mean, I've never seen so many injuries. They're the walking. We looked like a mass unit last year, and now, 20 games into the season, we're looking like a mass unit again. So they're made out of glass or something. I mean, I don't understand it. I just don't understand the injuries they got, and it's going to kill them. I mean, they got beat 3 times now by the Rays. They got hammered today, 10-5. So I don't know. I don't see I can tell you one thing. I saw the Rays pitching a little bit in spring, and they got pitching, and they're a good club. They're a real good club.
Well, not only that, the Rays became the first team to sweep a 3-game series at Yankee Stadium since Cleveland on August 28th to the 30th in 2017. And Tampa Bay has previously swept a series of 3 or more at New York in 2013 and 14. So when you talk about that, and then here, let's take it a step further. The Rays have had the Yankees number. It looks like they've had them this year, haven't they? It looks
the Yankees are beating the Rays in Yankee Stadium like a drum. Yeah, but it looks like that trend's changing a little bit.
Yeah, don't sell. What do you think, Stuart?
Well, Stanton has always been injury prone. I had looked it up. The 8 years he was down here in Florida, he played in over 140 games only 3 times.
Really?
Now, some of his injuries weren't of the necessarily, muscle type. He got beamed that one time. But he's someone they're just some guys, like you said, are just made of glass that just get hurt. And, Stanton is one of them. And, the Yankees have a lot of depth. Clint Frazier came in, had some good games right off the bat, and he'll be a good replacement for the time being. I mean, the Yankees are going to be in the playoffs. They could write their ticket now, assuming the season finishes. No doubt about it. So the question,
I think they will too, Stuart. I think they'll be in the playoffs, but they should have just dominated this thing without injuries. They have enough talent where they should have dominated this, and they did at the beginning. But the first few games. But now they don't look like the same club.
Well, let me tell you this: Tampa Bay beat the Yankees for the 6th time in 7 meetings in the abbreviated 10-game season series. Don't sleep on the Rays, because this team is probably better. And why don't we go ahead and transition over to the Tampa Bay Rays? KR, you're in the area. What are your thoughts about the small budget, penny-wise Rays that love player development?
They've always had a good minor league system. It's funny, one of the kids that played for me at South Florida, he was a backup. He played second base a little bit, then he backed up, and he played positions. Kevin Elfring, who's a scout in this area for the Rays, and they do a great job in their scouting department, and they have for years. I think they were rated 1 or 2 for years in their scouting, and they do a really, really good job. Bill Livesey, who used to be the coach at Eckerd for a minute. When I was coaching at Tampa U, he was the head coach at Eckerd, and then he started working for the Yankees, and then he left and went to the Pirates. But when he went with the Yankees, that's when their scouting department really took off, and he did a tremendous job of scouting the country. And they've always had really, really, really good scout from day one when they started the franchise. They were good. So, and they've continued that, and that helps them. But then we don't draw, so you don't draw. You get good players that come here a few years and then they go somewhere else because of the money, and they're never going to draw here. They're never going to draw. I don't think people don't have that kind of disposable cash to be going to the games. My dad, when we started the franchise, my dad had season tickets the first year, and it cost him a fortune. But he says, you know what? I'm an old man. I've always wanted to see baseball here, so I'm gonna pay the money. So he paid the money the first year, and I went to 40 games, I bet. And he went to 20 something, probably, maybe 30. Then the next year he goes, I can't afford this anymore. So he gave them up and went to a little mini package, and then went a couple of games every year after that because, like you said, the cost is ridiculous. For 2 people, it's going to cost you $60, $70 a night. Marketing, everything else. So, and that's we don't have that kind of disposable cash in Tampa. So that's the problem.
All right, so let me ask you another thing. Now that you brought that up, okay, they play at Tropicana Field. We know that's not the best area or location. I've driven across the Howard Franklin Bridge. The traffic jams are brutal. Don't you think the Rays would be better suited if they can find a stadium in Hillsborough County versus Pinellas County? That's what I've always wondered.
Well, I don't mind the stadium. Believe me, I live in Southampton, so it's a 15-minute drive for me. They were talking about putting Ybor City. Let me tell you something, Scott.
Yeah.
You put it where they were going to put it. Downtown is a bottleneck. That was the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life to put it there. I know exactly where they were going to put it. And if you can have a traffic jam, a 5 o'clock traffic, a Rays game, and then early in the year, a Lightning game. When I'm going downtown, I have to go downtown a lot at night towards Ybor City once a month for a board meeting at a club I'm a member of. And I have to look and see if the Lightning are playing because I go over the Platte Street Bridge, and it's bumper to bumper. And this is just a Lightning game at 5:30, 6 o'clock. So, you add a baseball game? No, that was just stupid. The best place to put it would be the fairgrounds, and to some extent, maybe where Derby Lane is now, because there's going to be no more dog racing.
Right.
Because it's going to be outlawed after the end of the year. That's not. There's only one way in on either side from Tampa or from St. Pete. So that's not real good. It's a nice area, but that's not going to work either. So I think the fairgrounds, which would put them closer to Lakeland and Orlando on east side of town, would be better than downtown. Ybor City is not the answer. That will be a logistical nightmare, if you ask me.
Well, many years ago.
Wrong.
Yeah, but many years ago when they built Tropicana Field, they wanted to put it right next to Tampa Stadium, and then it got to a point where it was such a headache that you could have the team if you wanted that bad enough. And that really would have been the ideal spot for it. by Al Lopez Field.
Absolutely the ideal spot.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean,
but you got the Steinbrenner Field there where the Yankees train.
Right, but that would have been a suitable place for him. But when St. Petersburg built the stadium and the politics got in the way, that would have solved the problem instead of the debacle that they had there. So I don't know.
Absolutely.
That's where I think it would have been better off. But do you think, though, if it were in Hillsborough County, that the Rays would be much better off and that they could have put a few people? They had to feel at home at Yankee Stadium. There were no fans there this week. Then again, there aren't any in Tropicana Field, so you don't have to worry about home field there because Tampa Bay Rays aren't used to playing in front of anybody anyway. Kidding. Maybe not.
No, I think it would be a little bit better in Tampa. I don't think it would be the answer. I don't think it's the answer.
Okay, that's fair.
I really don't think. I don't think. I don't care whether you put them here. I just don't think we're going to draw. And if you'd have told me this 26, 27 years ago, I'd tell you there's no way we're going to pack this in because this is a baseball area. But I never took into consideration the costs. I never thought the cost would be to the point because people say, why am I going to spend this kind of money where I can just watch it on TV? One of the things that in the old days when I was a kid, they only put the away games. You look at the Cubs, the Mets, they only put the away games on TV, and now they're putting home and away.
Right.
So, I know a lot of people just say, "Hell, I remember my dad saying, why should I drive over there? I just watch it on TV." And he was a big baseball fan. Let me tell you something. Baseball's on TV. He watched it. So, but he just decided, why should I go over there when I'm 5 steps away from the bathroom, 5 steps away from the refrigerator to get something to drink? Instead of fighting the traffic, I can just watch it on TV. And I got to be honest with you, watching baseball in person is a lot better than watching it on TV.
Well, no doubt about it. Well, of course, it doesn't hurt that your background's in baseball. You've done practically everything on the planet with it anyway. So
it's better to watch in person.
I agree. I love the chess match. All right, well, Stuart, we'll get you more involved now, obviously, with the Mets and the Marlins. Tonight's game, obviously, was postponed. One player, one staffer. Miami Marlins had a 5-game losing streak, and I got to tell you, on the Zoom call, Miguel Rojas was excited about his supposed return. That would have been his home opener. Well, I guess not. I guess he's got his resumption of play is going to occur over the weekend on the road. So, all right, Stuart, what do you think? The Mets aren't going to lose tonight. Then again, they aren't going to win. And the Marlins, well, back to postponement city, but this time it wasn't their fault.
Well, the Mets were, feeding off the Marlins the first 3 games of the series. Right. So it doesn't come at a great time, and hopefully, there are no more positive tests. So the Mets game tonight, as you mentioned, was postponed. Their first game of the Subway Series in Citi Field tomorrow night has also been postponed. So they're hoping, I would think, to play Saturday and Sunday, and, maybe one of those days would be a doubleheader, to make up for it. But again, it's going to depend on positive tests. It was one player and a worker, and they stayed behind down in Florida, and I presume the rest of the team is going to fly up to New York, assuming they all test negative.
Okay. Well, I mean, the reality of the situation is once again, so KR, what do you think of the 7-inning doubleheaders?
I've seen the 2 7-inning doubleheaders. I feel like I'm back in college watching that. I don't know why they would do that. I guess because I have no idea why they go 7-inning doubleheaders. I mean, I understand the coronavirus and all that, but I don't think a 2-inning difference is going to be a big deal. I think they should go play 9, but that's.
I think they do that because a lot of relief pitchers these days are only going to go an inning. And if you could save on using 2 pitchers, in a game that normally you might have had to use if you went 9, especially with all these makeups, and you have teams like the Cardinals and the Marlins that are going to see more than their share of doubleheaders the rest of the way. So I think they're doing that, just to kind of save on pitcher arms. Although you're seeing a lot of injuries for pitchers, a lot of arm injuries.
Well, yeah.
Which you didn't see, when I was a kid. I mean, I still think of the Bob Gibson years, and I remember the year at 1.8 something ERA, and complete games now. And I look at this, and I don't understand that. I don't understand these guys. Like when we pulled Garrett Cole last night, I couldn't understand that, and we go out and lose the game because of that. And I just thought he's still he's still throwing well. Why are they taking him out? And it's not something. And I was a pitching coach now in college, and I just don't understand that. I just don't understand people not being able to go the distance. They pitch count. Or I don't know if you guys are both younger than me, but I remember Spawn pitching in that game against the Pirates against Elroy's face, and they do Marshall. They do 200 pitches, and neither of those guys had arm problems. I think one of the big things now, though, and I may be wrong because I'm an old man and I'm thinking the old way. These guys are hell bent on throwing 100 miles an hour, and I think that they're over stressing their arm by doing that, and that's how we get in all the arm injuries. I was the athletic director at Alonso Jose Fernandez's last year, and I went out the first day of practice, and he used to come to my office every day and talk baseball. He knew I was a baseball guy, and his big thing was I got to hit 100. And I used to tell him, Jose, you don't have to throw 100. You can throw 93, 94. If your ball moves and you got location, he was hell bent on throwing 100 miles an hour. And if you remember when he got hurt that one time, and he hurt his arm and had to have surgery. And I told him, I said, because you're hell bent on throwing 100 miles an hour. And I think that's one of the big problems in big league in the pro ball now, that they want to throw the ball as hard as they can, and nobody worries about location anymore. The Greg Maddoxes of this world are like dinosaurs, and I think that's why they're having so much arm problems. I may be wrong.
I think that's part of it. I think the other part too is you have a lot of scouts and general managers, a new wave that are going totally by stats, sabermetrics, and their data is saying pitchers can't pitch 9 innings anymore, and they put pressure on the managers, because an older manager might not be inclined to take someone out, but if he's got someone in his ear saying, hey, he's thrown 95 pitches through 6 innings, get somebody up in the bullpen, there's some pressure. When Terry Collins managed the Mets, they had the one no-hitter, Johan Santana. And Collins, was in a little bit of a bind because Santana's pitch count was high, but yet he hadn't allowed a hit. And he kept him in, and at that point, Santana's career was never the same. Literally, the next start, he got hit, and he was just never the same again. So you have managers that are under pressure not to ruin what they perceive to ruin somebody's career because they left him in too long, and there's a fear, and you see probably a lot of managers are managing a little scared. Right. They don't want to leave someone in too long and, risk him getting hurt.
But why are guys hurting their arms more now than they did in the 60s? Honestly, I think pitchers in the 60s and into the 70s were just tougher. I think those guys had aches and pains, but they just pitched through it. That was their mentality. They just pitched through it. They had a job to do, and they got through it. Now, a pitcher, maybe just because of all the injuries, a pitcher will throw and he feels a little twinge in his shoulder, so he tells the pitching coach, and they pull him out. So I just think it's just the mentality of the time. I think pitchers were hurting back then, but they just didn't care, and they just went out and pitched.
That's true.
Well, let me tell you, the guy that was the head coach of South Florida when I was there was Robin Roberts. And we used to talk about the old days. He's old enough to be almost my father. And he said he never had arm problems. Never. And they didn't take care of their arms. He couldn't understand why I would ice my pitcher's arms down. Because I coached the pitchers at South Florida, believe it or not. He was the head coach, but I coached the pitchers. He could pitch, but he couldn't teach, and I could teach, and he did. And the pitchers couldn't understand why he wasn't a pitching coach, but he couldn't understand why I iced a pitcher's arms down. And I explained to him about shrinking the capillaries when they expand when you pitch, and he didn't know anything about that. He knew nothing about that, and he would laugh. He goes, "I think that's crap." I said, "Well, no, it's true though. Your capillaries get bigger when you pitch because of the blood vessel and you strain your arm." He goes, "I never did any of that. I would go into the shower at the end of the game and put hot water on it." I said, "Geez, that would expand them even more." He said, "I never had arm problems." So I don't know. And he says Warren Spahn never had arm problems, and he was telling me about all these guys never having arm problems, and they didn't take care of their arms back then like we do now. I can tell you that. Not from what I've heard. So I don't know.
So let me ask you this. Okay, we talk about summer camp versus spring training. Guys had 3 weeks to get ready for the season versus when they were getting into shape. Do you think that's factored in to some of the arm issues that have taken place?
Yeah, I think so, because everyone's schedule was thrown off.
Right.
Remember, they had most of the spring training where they were building up their arms,
right, and
then three and a half months of nothing. And then they had 3 weeks again to kind of build it up. And what you're seeing now is many pitchers still aren't going deep into the games. They're still building up their pitch counts.
Right.
And you see a lot of September-style baseball from the get-go. And by that, I mean where teams are just like doing bullpen days, throwing minor leaguers in for an inning or two. It's just kind of a scramble. And you're just seeing that over a full season as opposed to just at the tail end of the season like you normally would.
So, Stuart, ask KR the question that you kept stumping everybody else on the planet, okay, about the old perfect game and all that. I got to hear KR's reaction to that. Go ahead.
So, one thing I've been asking everybody. So, one of the new rules in addition to the 7-inning doubleheaders is if a game goes into extra innings, each team puts a runner on second to start the inning. So, my question was, let's say a pitcher, say Garrett Cole, has a perfect game through 9 innings. His pitch count is low. There's no score in the game. So he goes out to the 10th inning, put a man on second. He still have a perfect game?
Yeah, I would think so. He didn't put him on there by himself. It's put on because of this new rule, which is like slow pitch softball. That's what they do, slow pitch softball.
Well,
I would think it would be a perfect game.
That's what Don Mattingly said, too. So I asked him the same question. Stuart's got everybody thinking about this question. So when he popped this question to me and everybody else that we're talking, I told him, all right, Stuart, I'll get Mattingly. Now you got Lombardia. And whoever else we have until this crazy unprecedented, we're going to all hit them. And right now we have two, you have UKR and Don Mattingly are on the same page. Yeah, I think it's a perfect game because you're right. It wasn't the other guy's problem to begin with.
And then there was actually a case in softball in the Olympics with Lisa Fernandez, a pitcher for the U.S. I think it was against Austria, where it was the U.S., I think, scored a run in the top of the extra inning, and then she went out. They put a runner on second. She got 2 outs, and then the last batter hit a 2-run homer to win the game. So she took the loss, but I had checked the line score, and 1 run was unearned. So the person they put at second base who scored was an unearned run because she didn't put that runner on.
Right. Well,
But she took a hard luck loss.
Yeah. The way to eliminate it in softball is to move that damn mound back a little bit because I was watching the Olympic team right before the pandemic. The Olympic team was touring down here, and Mississippi State played them in Clearwater in that big tournament they have. And left-handed girl from Tennessee that pitched the Olympics. You can't hit her from 43 feet, or it's 43 feet in softball, I think. I mean, they need to move the mound back a little bit. I think it's too much of a pitcher's in softball. I think it's too much of a pitcher's game. When I was a kid, I used to watch the Bombers playing. I thought, how can you hit guys throwing 100 miles an hour, from 46 feet? Because 46, I think, for men, it's 43 for women. I mean, move the mound back 3 or 4 feet, so make it decent. Isn't there a minor league this year that moved it back to 62 feet baseball? Was it the independent league up in the East Coast somewhere? Stuart, do you remember?
I didn't see that.
Yeah, I think there was some minor league independent. They're doing it as an experiment to move the mound back to 62 feet rather than 60 feet. It was an independent A league. East Coast somewhere.
Do you think something like that would put more stress on a pitcher's arm?
I don't. If he's trying to go 100, yeah. If he's not, then I guess it wouldn't. I think that I never coached my pitchers to worry about. I never worried about a gun. I never cared about a gun. I cared about location, movement, and changing speeds. And I never worried about a guy throwing 95. I just never did. The best pitchers I ever coached didn't throw that hard. The best pitchers I ever coached had through location. Chuck Hernandez, who was the pitching coach for the Marlins when Jose was there. Chuck's best pitch was a changeup. He had the nastiest changeup I've ever seen in my life. He probably threw upper 80s, low 90s, never strained his arm. Randy Wilson, Player of the Year in the Sun Belt in '82, probably threw mid to high 80s, but never threw the same pitch at the same speed. Never gave you two pitches in the same location. Guys like that are the guys that get people out. I love watching Maddox pitch. Bob Gibson threw hard. Bob Gibson probably threw 93, 94, but he came right at you and his ball moved. And he never worried, and he never strained himself. Some of these guys, they worry about velocity, and I just never worried about velocity. I just worry about getting people out. And I think that's what they go. The scouts, if you go to, and I'm sure you've been, I've seen it in college, I've seen it in high school. Go to a game, one of your best pitchers pitching, you got six guys behind home plate with guns, and it just psychs the kid out. Oh, I got to touch 95, I got to touch 96 in the gun, or they won't draft me. And I think that's crap.
Well, amazingly enough, you talk about getting people out. I've known Chuck Hernandez since the 80s when he was with the Fort Lauderdale Yankees, and he's been a good friend of mine. You know that, KR, when I go back with him. And of course, he spent a little time with the Mets on their coaching staff, I think about a year ago. But Chuck told me, in my opinion, Chuck Hernandez is known for having the best pickoff move I've ever seen. He said, I had to have a good one because I couldn't get anybody out. So, but he was
have a great. He did have the best pickoff move I've ever seen.
Oh, I'll tell you.
He was a great pitcher. His dad just passed away last week, by the way, Scott.
Oh yeah, that's too bad.
Nice man, great man, great athlete. Played football, basketball. Didn't play baseball in high school. Became a fast pitch softball pitcher. But just a great man. But Chuck pitched, and Chuck, you never saw the same pitch back to back in the same location ever. And I think those are the guys that get people out. Whitey Ford probably didn't throw but 86, 87 maybe. Guys like that just got people out. Tom Seaver probably low 90s. And just location. Great breaking pitch. Didn't walk anybody. Changed speeds. Guys like that to me are the greatest pitchers of all time. The Nolan Ryans they're the exception to the rule. So, I think I was worried too much about that. But
Chuck Hernandez has got one of the best sense of humors I've ever seen in my life. We joke around about it. Who I had on the broadcast earlier in the week was Kevin Rand. And, let me add a little something to what he talked about, because we talked about COVID-19. That, he said the first 30 games this year is like spring training anyhow. So, and then the last 30 are what they are. And that's something I throw out there. But Chuck Hernandez had a great sense of humor, and he taught the game well. Been a pitching coach for a lot of years, and he's made a lot of stops. So, but he was always candid about it. Hey, I couldn't get anybody out. I had to have a good move, but he's okay with it, and he's been a baseball lifer. Is what he is.
He could get people out.
Oh yeah,
he threw a no hitter for me.
Oh, did he really?
And that's in summer 7. Yeah, beat West Tampa. We beat him 9-0, and he threw a no hitter. I don't think he threw 5 breaking pitches that night. He ate them up. I remember that game and it was 1978. I remember the game like it was yesterday. He just threw change up, and then fastball and change up, and he was eating them alive. But his location was just, he was on the black all night. He was a hell of a pitcher. I thought Chuck was. I think he hurt his arm late in his career.
Right.
Well, not late, but I think that's what hurt him because he was the kind of guy that I thought would pitch a long time in the big leagues because he threw strikes.
Good pitching coach, though. He taught the game real well, and he's had success outside. Are you in touch with Chuck much?
I have not seen him in a few, and probably, I haven't seen anybody in the last 3 months, but I haven't seen Chuck probably in 6-7 months.
Oh, all right.
I run into her once in a while, but I don't even know who he's with anymore. I have no idea. I know he got let go by the Braves when they changed management, and I don't know who he is, who's with now anymore. His brother-in-law is Nadi Contreras, who's a very, very good friend of mine. We played against each other. We were kids. We never got to play together. And Nadi played with the Reds, and he's his brother-in-law. And he's retired. I know I see him every once in a while with his grandkids. Chuck, I have not seen.
Yeah, I think he was with the Mets on December 9th, 2018. He was their bullpen coach, and that's the last update I've got on him. So trying to think where he's at now. In fact, that's the last update. He was with actually, once his career ended, he ended up being the bullpen coach for the California Angels, went on to be their pitching coach, was with the Rays, or Devil Rays at the time, from 2004 and 5. Tigers pitching coach, 6 to 8. Yeah, right, there you go. And then he went with the Tigers from 6 to 8, and they were actually in the World Series when he was there. Then went to Cleveland, Miami Marlins for a few years, Braves, and then, of course, with the Mets. So he's definitely been around. I have no other update, but his last stop was with the Mets, and that's when I actually saw him, and I spent time and interviewed him. Actually, you know who I interviewed him for? Stuart with Peter Ween's broadcast, so pretty interesting how that worked out.
Pete Moore would know where he's at. His high school coach would know where he's at.
Right. But I have his number, so I can find out. But anyways. So, all right, why don't you give Stuart, KR, anything, Stuart, you want to add about the Marlins Mets before we go on to the Chamberlain Speed Lumber Company? Stu?
I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anything you want to add about the Marlins or the Mets? And where do you think the Mets are going to go, Stuart?
Where do what was the beginning of that question again? You
that's okay. I know the Marlins and Mets obviously have been postponed, but, what about the Mets? Obviously, I think they're going to be out the next 2 games, but what are your thoughts
pitching is pretty much depleted. DeGrom came back, pitched well last night. They need him to stay healthy, obviously. Rick Porcello is serving as a number 2 starter for now, but he's really not a number 2.
Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and let KR give you a education on the Chamberlain Speed Lumber Company.
Oh, I got to ask Stuart about my boy Pete Alonso. I got to say I'm a Pete Alonso fan. He went to the same high school I went to, and we are the same ethnic background. And I got to tell you, I saw him in high school, and he went to Jesuit for a couple of years, and he wanted to play third base. And the coach over there said, "You're not a third baseman. Going to make him a first base." Well, he went to Plant and played first base, and I saw him his senior year a couple of games, and I'm thinking, this kid's just stud. And nobody wanted him. They had to beg Florida to take him, and he went up there, and the rest is history. And he's just grew up in Tampa, which is really odd for a Spanish kid. But he grew up in Tampa, but his dad did not. Which we all always wondered, who's this guy? Who's this guy? And we found out he grew up in Ohio somewhere. Because I don't know if a lot of people don't know this, but Tampa is the largest Spanish immigration city in the United States, and everybody that's from Spain, like my grandparents, they all came to Tampa mostly, and his went to Ohio. But we are big Pete Alonso fans, and I'm not a Mets fan, but I sure am a Pete Alonso fan. But Chamberlain, we're talking about Chamberlain. When I coached in college, we used to play Miami, and when you play Miami, if they get a base runner, it turned it into a track meet. And Ron Frazier was the coach at the time, so I always vowed when I had my own teams, we're going to run. So my first, I coached summer ball, but my first head coaching job was at Chamberlain High School in Tampa in '85, and in 27 games we stole 127 bases. And we got on, and my first two hitters were a guy by the name of Robbie Cornett, and the number 2 hitter was a guy by the name of Jay Gruden. I'm sure that rings a bell. And both of them stole 30 bases. And I had a number 3 hitter who stole 27, and then down the line we stole 27 bases each kid. But we really, really put pressure on teams by running. And we're lucky that we had our number 3 to 5 hitters could hit with power. So we hit some home runs in the middle of the order, and so we gave the name the Chamberlain Speed and Lumber Company. It was a fun team to watch, fun team to coach.
Yeah, it was a fun team to cover, too. What do you think about that, Stuart? Combination of power and speed.
Yeah, that's good, and hopefully the pitching was good, and you have
pretty good pitching. Pretty good pitching. Our number one guy got drafted by the Cardinals, but he got a little bit of trouble and didn't last. I think he went as high as Double-A, but he had got a little bit of trouble. And our number 2 and 3 guy went to junior college. The best reliever we had was a little submariner, and he did not want to go to play baseball in college. He wanted to go to work. I haven't seen him in years, but he was a great. It was after I had the reliever at South Florida, the submariner. I made this little kid a submariner, and he had a bunch of saves his senior year, and he was real. We just tell our kids, you had 7, 8 games in high school. Let's go 5. We bring in Dave. The game's over. And he didn't get beat there. He led the county in saves, and he threw from underneath, and he had a sinking fastball and a rising curveball, and he was tough to hit. He was only a junior at the time, but we were pretty good. We were 22-5. Got beat on a very controversial Sarasota Riverview team by some really bad calls. So we would have probably ended up in the finals with Jefferson, with Tino Martinez, and Luis Gonzalez. We split with them during the regular season, and they beat us when it counted at the end for the conference title. And then they were a different district than we were, and we'd have faced them after the Sarasota game. They beat Sarasota, and then Jefferson went on and lost to Miami, a team from Miami that had a kid named Alex Gonzalez was good. That played pro ball. They should play pro ball.
Yeah, that was a fun team to cover too. And I had my pick of the litter with the Tampa Tribune covering games. I obviously enjoyed yours. I was running one of the baseball beats. That was good. Wow.
We were fun. We were fun team to coach because we could run and we could hit, and we got a little bit cocky. We were pretty cocky.
Well, I was telling Jim Henry at the time, who's with the Tallahassee Democrat up in Tallahassee, I said, I'm going to do a lot more Chamberlain games. This guy named K.R. Lombardia is a character, is what I told him. He said, whatever you want. So,
Jim's brother played shortstop at Leto.
Oh, did he really?
At Leto High School. Yeah, pretty good shortstop.
Yeah, and his son.
He went to junior college somewhere. I don't know whatever happened to him, though.
I think his son Brian went on to play ball, too. So, Brian Henry as well. I followed Jim on Facebook, and I've seen him. I don't remember the last time I saw him, but our paths cross. A lot of my old Tampa Tribune buddies and we cross either through Facebook or a reunion or whatever. But it's neat to be associated with them. That was a really great group to work with. Okay, so
did you work with David Alfonso?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I did. I remember David Alfonso.
He's my wife's cousin.
Oh, he's
my wife's cousin. Wow. Great boxing writer. Maybe one of the best boxing writers I've ever seen.
I remember that. Yeah, he did.
Well, he could really write about boxing.
By the way, a little bit of breaking news before we go on to our final subject. The Minnesota Timberwolves won the NBA draft lottery tonight, and they'll pick first in the October 16 draft. The Golden State Warriors, a year removed from being in the NBA Finals, will select second, while the Charlotte Hornets jump to third slot. My Detroit Pistons are seventh. For all you Detroit listeners out there, I won't go with the order, but those are the ones that are relevant to what I'm talking about. So get that out there.
About the Knicks.
How about the Knicks? Actually, the New York Knicks, well, they're actually eighth. So there you go. That's relevant to you, Stuart. So, but
I'll tell you how much I know about basketball.
I used to have season tickets back in the Ewing era.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah, that was a pretty good pick for you, Patrick Ewing. I was always pushing for Patrick Ewing to win an NBA title, and I think the only thing that bothered me about Ewing is he never got a chance to be a head coach in the NBA because he deserved it. But he's at Georgetown, but he was you root hard for certain players, and Ewing, it was too bad he never got a ring, but he was a heck of a player, and New York made out well with him. So I'm surprised they never hired him as a head coach, but so be it.
And rumor has it the balls were fixed that night. The Knicks got the first pick.
Oh, were they really? Yeah, it was. Well, hey, listen, Stuart, you can't win them all.
They knew he would be the first pick, and New York was a major market, and the NBA wanted the first pick in a major market any way possible.
Yeah, well, meanwhile, it didn't work out.
The Knicks weren't the favorite to get the first pick. They didn't have the most. Their odds weren't the highest to get the first pick. So it was a kind of a long shot that they were going to get it.
Yeah, well, meanwhile, your New York Rangers got the first pick in the NHL draft, so it's not so bad. So, all right, well, let's talk about a guy that's in a little bit of hot water. His name is Tom Brenneman. Obviously, talked about an anti-gay slur. And, you know, I got to know Tom when I was up in Detroit. He was, you know, we were talking when he was doing the college football playoff. And, of course, Marty Brenneman, you know, Tampa, obviously, there's roots of the Cincinnati Reds. I got to know Marty, and I saw him back in 19 over at the National Sports Media Association Awards Banquet. And I actually have his number. I have to reach out to him again sometime soon. But what are your thoughts about the Tom Brenneman slur? You know, I know he was pulled from the NFL coverage, and now he plans to take diversity training. KR, why don't you go ahead and give me your thoughts, and then Stuart, and then at that point we'll wrap up the broadcast.
You know, it's so sad. I didn't know what happened till you told me.
Right.
No, he made a slur, but I didn't know what the slur was.
An anti.
And he told me, and it's sad. I was a member of the Seventh Inning Club here when the Reds trained in Tampa. Not that I was a Reds fan, but my dad joined the Seventh Inning Club and joined me with him, and we got to meet those guys, Sparky Anderson and Marty Brenneman, and you know, the Reds were very interesting. We went to the seventh to see the Reds play in Cincinnati, and it's just sad that to see Brenneman get in trouble like this. He's probably through. What's sad is that we're so unforgiving for certain things, and then very forgiving for other things.
Right.
And I think that you know, the last person that was perfect they crucified over 2,000 years ago, but now we're, you know, looking at people, but certain people in this world and country can do anything they want to do and not be blasphemed for it. And then some people that make a mistake, they hang them by the neck or lower, and it's just sad. And I feel bad for the guy, and probably finished, you know, and he'll probably disappear into oblivion. Nobody will hear about him again, and then we'll give a second chance.
It's a shame.
But there's other people that they will. So,
well, social media doesn't help any either. And I remember many years ago, I think we all can probably remember what happened with Al Campanis on ABC News Nightline, how he made those racist comments about African Americans not being able to manage. And Tad Koppel gave him every opportunity to get out of it. I mean, not one, but 2 or 3 chances. And he didn't do it. And I've never seen a guy commit career suicide as bad as Al Campanis. The irony is I got to know him at the 1981 baseball winter meetings when I got to meet Tom Lasorda. And Al was really, really nice to me every time I approached him, even there after a Dodger Town spring training. And it is a real sad shame where, you know, all the good things that you've done because of one mistake go down the drain. And it's just too bad. I mean, you know,
well, how about Jimmy the Greek? Remember Jimmy the Greek?
Oh, yeah, he definitely did too well.
And Howard Cosell made that one incident about the Washington Redskins receivers.
Yeah, well,
he didn't mean it that way. And,
I'm not so sure.
And, you know, they forgave them a little bit.
Well, I'm not so sure.
Howard.
I never cared about Howard Cosell. He was a jerk anyways.
Howard never really worked again. I mean, his legacy was forgiven.
Right.
But he never really worked again. Over time, people remembered the body of the career and not the incident that ended it.
Right.
But he was pretty much done as a broadcaster after that night.
Yeah. And that's a shame. I love Howard Cosell.
Yeah, well, I'll try to work with the guy. In fact, I'll never forget when I was working an NFL game at the Orange Bowl. I asked him if I could do an interview. He said no, so I ended up settling on O.J. Simpson. So it wasn't the worst thing that ever happened to a young sports writer breaking into the business.
Was the interview done at a Ford Bronco?
No.
I'm glad you said that, Stuart.
I know. I was waiting for one of you two to come forward. So, all right, Stuart, give me your take on the Tom Brenneman situation.
I mean, his career is done. I mean, the NFL let him go from, you know, Fox let him go from the NFL games as well. What also hurt was the apology.
Right.
When you start an apology, if I have hurt anyone out there, it doesn't come across as sincere. He then went to say, I apologize to the people who signed my paycheck, for the Reds, for Fox Sports Ohio, for the people I work with, for anybody that I've offended. And he didn't really mention the group that he did offend by saying that. So he's, again, maybe over time people will remember the body of his career, but I don't really see him working. And then while he was doing the apology, a player hit a home run, and he stopped it in the middle to say, so-and-so just hit a home run. I didn't hear the exact, slur. I don't know what set it off, like what maybe the other announcer may have said, or someone in production may have said that made him say that. Like, you just kind of wonder. And then at what point did he realize after he said it that it was going to be a problem? Did someone get in his ear and say, you got to say something? Did he realize as soon as he said it that it was wrong? I mean, these are questions we may never get the answer to, but it was just stuff that I was thinking about as to what exactly made him say that. What was the conversation that was going on when he did say it?
You know what? I never saw it, so I can't comment on it. All I know was
I didn't hear it either. So
I heard about it, and I felt bad because I got to know Tom, and we got along really good. Of course, I know Marty, so I think Marty went on to say, I know Tom's not like that, but he also understood that you was sympathetic toward the group for which was offended, and that's where Marty went with it. So I didn't watch it. I felt bad. And I hope he does get a second chance. God only knows, maybe, hopefully in about a year or two whether he does. But right now, diversity training, you hope that time will heal all wounds. But I'm not holding my breath right now. It's just a shame to see that happen to him. And again, social media only accelerated what just took place. But back then when Campanis did it, you didn't have cable television was in its infancy stages. So, what can I tell you? It's just totally unfortunate.
Terrible.
Yeah, it is. So any closing thoughts about Brenneman before we wrap up the broadcast?
No, I hope they give him a second chance, but I'm sure they won't.
Right. All right. Well, with that said,
I think he's done.
All right, KR. Well, with that said,
at least for now,
we'll let you lead off and let people know they can reach KR Lombardia.
Sorry?
How can our listeners and reach KR Lombardia? Contact information or anything that you want them to know about? Yeah.
I'm on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'd ask me a question on Facebook, Instagram. On Twitter. I'm on all those. So if anybody needs to know anything, any questions, I'm available.
He's available. Go ahead. So you're available on all forms of social media, right?
Yeah, social media.
Okay. All right, Stuart, go ahead.
Okay, so when I'm not interviewing people in a Ford Bronco, preparing tax returns not made of glass, by the way. Hack Tax and Accounting Services in Wellington, Florida, Palm Beach County. I'm the managing member there. 214-6171-561 area code, hacktaxandaccounting.com. Facebook page, Hack Tax and Accounting. Twitter, HackTax1. I am also the immediate past president of the Wellington Chamber of Commerce, as well as their current treasurer. So that's, I think, where you can reach me.
All right. And as for myself, by the way, you're listening to 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morgan, Rough Motor City Madmouth. Please be joined by KR Lombardia, guy that I've known since the mid-1980s. And, of course, Stuart Hack, my regular co-host on this broadcast. And to find this broadcast, you can go to Apple Podcasts, subscribe to that, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, or for that matter, wherever you get your podcasts. So I'll repeat it again. Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. There's probably a million places to do it at this particular point. To get a hold of us, you can follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. That's the @ Tribune South. Facebook, like us on South Florida Tribune. Instagram, South Florida Tribune Gets It Done. YouTube channel, South Florida Gets It Done. And we'll be doing a lot more Zoom broadcasts. We're able to do a lot more face-to-face things as well. So one way to navigate through COVID-19 is do it that way. Our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. You can also find these broadcasts there, as well as content from our media distribution partners and columnists. And by the way, KR Lombardia, University of South Florida, my alma mater, proud of it, USF, is also one of our media distribution partners. I should point that out. You can email me at southfloridatribune@gmail.com or connect with me on LinkedIn, Scott Morganroth. So, guys, it's been a pleasure putting you on together. And, I can only say that the nicest part about doing these broadcasts is it's always nice to have new people meet one another that enjoy the same passion. So, thank you all for being on the broadcast. And on behalf of KR Lombardia, Stuart Hack, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth, encouraging everybody to go out there and be safe, wear your mask, use common sense and courtesy for one another. COVID-19, unfortunately, is a virus that, we know not only can it become fatal, but it has lasting effects. So social distance, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Good night, everybody.